Hello, Namaskar. This is Firstpost and you're watching Vantage with me, Palki Sharma. Israel is bombing Beirut, the capital of Lebanon, continuing the high-intensity assault that began over the weekend. The first target was the Hezbollah chief, Hassan Nasrallah. Israel killed him. Then they launched an all-out campaign targeting every Iranian proxy in West Asia, from Gaza to Lebanon and Yemen. The entire axis of resistance built by Iran. Israel is going after all of them. Let's start with Lebanon on the show, where the Hezbollah has suffered a devastating blow. Their leader, Hassan Nasrallah, is dead. In fact, their top brass has been decimated because in the last 10 days, at least 7 top Hezbollah leaders have been killed. Israel claims an even higher number. It says 20 Hezbollah leaders have been neutralized. It's hard to confirm either number, but the result of these killings is undeniable. Israel has paralyzed the Hezbollah. They're at their weakest, and Israel is far from done. It is aiming for the total elimination of Hezbollah. It has intensified bombing operations in Beirut. Today, Israel struck central Beirut, targeting an apartment building. 2 floors were completely blown out. At least 3 people were killed. These were senior members of a pro-Palestine group. And this is a major escalation. This is the first time in 18 years that Israel has targeted central Beirut, the heart of Lebanon's capital. The message is quite clear. There are no limits or red lines anymore. Israel is going after all of them, wherever they are.
Our enemies, I say, we are strong and determined. To our partners, I would say, our war is your war. And to the people of Lebanon, I say, our war is not with you. It's time to change.
He may say that the war is not with the people of Lebanon, but they are paying the price for it because groups like Hamas and Hezbollah are embedded with civilians. Last week's strike hit them like a bolt of lightning, and now Nasrallah's death has sent shockwaves through the region. Many people in Lebanon could not believe it. When Israel claimed Nasrallah's death, they were in denial. They dismissed it as enemy propaganda. But on Saturday afternoon, Hezbollah issued a confirmation. They declared that Hassan Nasrallah was indeed dead. On local television, anchors broke down while sharing the news.
نالها سيد الشهداء التبريكات للتعازي باستشهاد الأمين العام لحزب الله السيد حسن نصر الله.
After that, all hell broke loose. The streets were packed with people. Many of them were in tears, but some of them were also seen celebrating. Some people fired gunshots into the sky. And this is not surprising because Hassan Nasrallah was a deeply divisive figure. To his critics, he was an Iranian proxy, but to his supporters, he was a hero, the man who drove Israel out of southern Lebanon in 2006. Shia Muslims across the world mourned his death. They took to the streets in Iran, in the West Bank, in Pakistan, even in parts of India. Why has Nasrallah evoked such a strong and widespread response? We'll discuss that in a bit, but first let's tell you how his group is faring. Hezbollah is trying to project strength, saying it is ready to fight Israel.
We will face any possible attack, and we are ready. If the Israelis decide to enter by land, the resistance forces are ready for a ground engagement. We have prepared and got ready, and with our trust in God Almighty, we are confident that the Israeli enemy will not achieve its goals, and we will emerge victorious from this battle.
Lebanon is the new battleground in West Asia. Israel has been bombing it non-stop. In the last 2 weeks, it has conducted hundreds of airstrikes, killing at least 1,000 people and displacing 1 million. The next step could be a ground offensive. Israel has deployed tanks near the border with Lebanon. It has called up its reserve forces. Israeli special forces are already on the front lines. Reports say they're launching small raids across the border. Today, the Israeli defense minister met his troops, and this is what he told them.
I am saying here to the reservists and to the regulars, everything that needs to be done, we will do. Our goal is to return the residents of the North to their homes. For the return of the residents of the North to their homes, we will be ready to make every effort. This is your mission. This is the mission of the IDF, and this is what we will do, and we will employ all that is needed. Your forces, other forces, from the air, from the sea, and also from the land.
From the air, from the sea, and from the land. Israel seems to be gearing up to hit Lebanon from all sides, and that's not all. Israel is also targeting the Houthis in Yemen. The IDF launched a series of air raids. Dozens of aircraft flew to Yemen to strike the Houthis, which is another proxy group of Iran, the Houthi group. Their power plants and seaport facilities were hit. Reports say at least 4 people are dead. And this was a retaliatory strike. Over the weekend, the Houthis launched a missile. It was aimed at Tel Aviv. The Houthis used a ballistic missile. The target was the Ben Gurion International Airport. Israel intercepted the missile. No damage was done. The Houthis most probably knew that this would happen because this was not a serious military strike. It was more like a demonstration. They wanted to show Israel that their missiles could reach as far as Tel Aviv. Now Israel is responding in kind. It's a free-for-all.
Nasrallah was not just another terrorist, he was the terrorist.
We will face any possible attack, and we are ready.
Hassan Nasrallah was the most powerful man in Lebanon, with influence and followers beyond the country's borders. He literally had an army at his disposal and top-notch security. So how did Israel manage to kill him, and where does his death leave the Hezbollah? Let's tell you about the man first. Hassan Nasrallah was born in 1960 in eastern Beirut. It was an impoverished neighborhood. His father sold vegetables. He was the eldest of 9 children. Nasrallah was a Shia Muslim. The community had long been neglected in Lebanon. So at a young age, he was drawn to religion. In 1974, a group called Amal was formed, a Shia militia group called Amal. The very next year, Lebanon descended into a civil war and Nasrallah joined Amal. He was 15 years old. This was a brief stint in a militia. Soon he turned back to religious studies. He headed to the city of Najaf in central Iraq, where he met a cleric, a man who would impact his life deeply. This man was Ayatollah Khomeini, the first supreme leader of Iran. Nasrallah was close to Khomeini. He was inspired by him. So when he returned to Lebanon, he wanted to do what Khomeini was doing. Nasrallah joined Amal, the same Shia militia group again. But he kept wanting to do more. An opportunity came up in 1982. That's when Israel invaded Lebanon. More than 20,000 Lebanese were killed. When the assault ended, Beirut formed a unifying committee to heal the country. Amal became a part of this group. But Hassan Nasrallah and several others felt betrayed. They did not want to give in. For them, resistance was the only answer, so they left Amal. And in the same year, in 1982, they established the Hezbollah, or the Party of God. That's what the Hezbollah means. In the years that followed, Hezbollah grew rapidly. Nasrallah served as a fighter. He worked his way up the ranks. He often went to Iran to consult. And Hezbollah chose him to go to be sent to Iran because he was fluent in Persian. So Nasrallah was basically doing well for himself, but 1992 changed his life. Israel killed Abbas al-Musawi, the Secretary General of Hezbollah, and Hassan Nasrallah replaced him. He was only 32 years old and he became the Hezbollah chief at the age of 32. He transformed the Hezbollah. When he took charge, it was just a fringe group. Under him, it became a formidable force. In the year 2000, he drove Israel out of southern Lebanon. In 2006, he led the group to a deadly war with Israel. All of this gave Nasrallah a cult status, but he wasn't done. His next goal was to mainstream the Hezbollah. It was already a military force. He wanted to make it a political force too. In 2018, Hezbollah swept Lebanon's parliamentary elections. It became the biggest political party in the country. The Shia community loved him, but many hated him too. They accused him of fueling sectarianism and of being an Iranian stooge. But hated or loved, Nasrallah was a towering presence in Lebanon. He was everywhere, on posters, on TV, on the radio, but rarely seen in public. Very few people knew where he lived. He did not venture out, and his speeches were pre-recorded. They were broadcast from a secret location, and all of this gave him an aura of mystique and invincibility. So if he lived such a careful life, how did Israel manage to kill him? Well, the answer is deep intelligence. Reports suggest that Israel had a mole in the Hezbollah. Some say it was an Iranian. He kept an eye on Nasrallah. Apparently, Israel knew of his location for months. So why did they strike now? Because he was planning to move to a different location. Israel feared that he would disappear. They had a small window to act, and they decided to take him out. Most of the Israeli war cabinet approved of this. A few ministers opposed. The plan came together last Monday, and Prime Minister Netanyahu knew about it. But things actually fell into place only on Friday. Nasrallah was in his underground bunker. Israel confirmed the intelligence. Their defense minister and the IDF chief called Netanyahu. The Israeli Prime Minister was in New York at that time. He was just heading to deliver a speech at the United Nations General Assembly. When he was briefed about the intelligence, Netanyahu approved the strike. He then pitched for war at the UN. And less than an hour later, Israel struck Beirut. They hit the Hezbollah headquarters. Hassan Nasrallah was killed. It was a major win for Israel.
The elimination of Nasrallah is a necessary condition in achieving the objectives we have set, returning the residents of the north safely to their homes, and changing the balance of power in the region for years.
The Hezbollah is decapitated. But here's the thing about terror groups. They're Hydra-headed. Killing the chief does not kill the group, and the Hezbollah has suffered a lot in the past 2 weeks. Pager blasts, airstrikes, and then the killing of their leader. They must be in shock, but they still have thousands of fighters. A vast majority of arsenal remains intact.
Hezbollah will continue with its goals and their presence in the field. The command system and the Mujahideen will continue following with your plan, with the same precision and the steps you have drawn up.
Hezbollah says it is ready for war, a war it may not be really prepared to fight. But at this point, it's not their decision to make. Israel is calling the shots. So West Asia is mourning Nasrallah's death. But here's the surprise. So are some people in India. We've seen rallies and protests in Kashmir and Lucknow. Not the small, spontaneous kind. These were big, well-organized processions. Hundreds of protesters/mourners joined in. They carried posters with Nasrallah's face. Take a look at this. To give you some background, Hezbollah is a Shia militant group, and Shias are a minority in Kashmir. They make up just 10% of the population, but they do have certain strongholds. For example, Budgam. It's located around 14 kilometers from Srinagar. And there, such sentiments have always existed. Even before the Gaza war, in the Shia quarters, you could see posters of Iran's Ayatollah or Qasem Soleimani or Hassan Nasrallah. There was a sense of Shia solidarity beyond borders. So this outpouring of grief is not surprising. But here's the problem. Supporting Gaza is fine. So is supporting the people of Lebanon. But supporting Hezbollah, that's more complicated. Legally, you can do it. No one can stop you. Hezbollah is not banned or a designated terror group in India. The government of India does not categorize the Hezbollah as terrorists. So you can support them if you want to, but I'm afraid this issue is not just legal. It's also a question of morals and national interest. Hassan Nasrallah had blood on his hands, the blood of innocent civilians. Just consider what happened in July this year. Hezbollah rockets hit a football field in the Golan Heights. They killed 12 innocent children. And it happened on Nasrallah's watch. Should anyone be celebrating such a man? You can question Israel's tactics, you can call out the violations of international law, but it doesn't change a simple fact. Hassan Nasrallah was an evil man. He may have fought for the Shia community, but he slaughtered innocents. And that's the moral problem with celebrating him. Now we come to national interest, because it's not just common people mourning him. Some Indian politicians are doing the same, like Mehbooba Mufti. She leads the People's Democratic Party in Kashmir, the PDP. Plus, she is a former chief minister. And Mufti cancelled her election campaign on Sunday. Do you know why? As a mark of respect for Nasrallah. Now, this was a strange decision to make because Kashmir will be voting tomorrow. It's the last phase of the assembly elections there, and yesterday was the last day of campaigning. Yet Mufti said, I will not hit the campaign trail, that too for Hassan Nasrallah, the same Nasrallah who supported Kashmiri self-determination, who undermined India's sovereignty over Kashmir. Should an Indian politician be celebrating such a man, that too a former chief minister? Surely not. And it's not just Mehbooba Mufti. A lot of candidates cancelled their campaign on Sunday, like Ruhollah Mehdi, a senior national conference leader. The BJP has criticized these moves. They say the opposition is mourning a terrorist.
हसन नसरुल्लाह का मौत हो गया और आज कश्मीर में महबूबा मुफ्ती बोल रहा है कि हम चुनाव प्रसार नहीं करूंगा, हम दुखी है, किस लिए? हसन नसरुल्लाह का मौत हो गया है। मैं महबूबा मुफ्ती, फारूक अब्दुल्ला, राहुल गांधी सबको पूछना चाहता हूं, जब हमारे कभी कोई जगह में हिंदू का मर्द होते हैं, आतंकवादी हिंदू जवानों को मारते हैं, तब आप लोग दुखी होते हैं कि नहीं होते हैं? ये कृपा करके हमें बताइए।
Some in Kashmir have been more careful, like former Chief Minister Omar Abdullah. He did not openly mourn or celebrate Nasrallah, but he asked the central government to put pressure on Israel to work towards ending the war. It's important to see all this in a broader context because there is a campaign to globalize the Kashmir issue. Pakistan has been doing it, Turkey has been doing it. Recently, even Iran's supreme leader did it. He clubbed Kashmir with Gaza and Myanmar. In that context, certain red lines must be drawn. First, you cannot back leaders/terrorists who undermine India's sovereignty. That's what Hezbollah has done in the past. They questioned India's rights over Kashmir. And two, you cannot equate Kashmir with Gaza. That comparison is simply not on. But some Kashmiri leaders have hinted at it, like Mehbooba Mufti's daughter, Iltija Mufti. She's making her debut in this election and she talked about atrocities on Muslims in Gaza and Kashmir as if they're comparable. Another example is senior National Conference leader Farooq Abdullah. He said Kashmir could turn into Gaza without India-Pakistan talks. Again, unacceptable. Such statements are coming from senior political leaders. They will influence the next generation. In fact, we're already seeing that. A lot of children were part of these rallies in Kashmir. Look at how they talked about Nasrallah's death.
आपने एक हिजबुल्लाह चीफ को मारा है, हर घर से हिजबुल्लाह निकलेगा। मैं लिबनानियंस को हौसला देना चाहूंगी कि वो बिल्कुल भी फिक्र ना करे, क्योंकि हम उनके साथ हैं। The Shia community उनके साथ है।
Do you think she understands West Asian politics or the nature of Hezbollah or what Hassan Nasrallah stood for? Chances are no, which is why Kashmir's politicians need to set better examples. There is a difference between Muslim solidarity and terror solidarity. I'm afraid this is leaning towards the latter.
The criminal and terrorist Zionist regime with this action has prepared the ground for a harsh punishment.
No one has the right to doubt the legal right of the Islamic Republic of Iran to punish the aggressor.
The Hamas chief is dead, the Hezbollah chief is dead, and both at the hands of Israel, which makes you wonder, what is their godfather up to? I'm talking about Iran. Hassan Nasrallah was probably their most important ally, sort of like the perfect proxy, loyal, powerful and effective. So what is Iran doing to take revenge for his death? Well, so far it's been the usual, rants against Israel and promises of retaliation.
In our opinion, America is a partner in this crime and cannot separate itself from this reality in any way, and the blood of the martyrs of this incident will certainly not go unanswered, and we will definitely stand by Lebanon.
It's like a déjà vu. Think back to late July this year. Israel killed Hamas chief Ismail Haniyeh in Tehran, and what did Iran do? The very same thing, rants against Israel and promises of retaliation. Well, it's been more than 60 days since Haniyeh's assassination, but Iran is yet to hit back. It says this is restraint, a show of maturity by the so-called rogue regime. Their president talked about it at the United Nations General Assembly. He said Iran does not seek war.
The Islamic Republic of Iran seeks to safeguard its own security, not to create insecurity for others. We want peace for all and seek no war or quarrel with anyone.
If so, they deserve credit. Their leaders have certainly been more responsible than Netanyahu. But let's be honest here. It makes Iran look weak, as if they don't have the stomach for war. And that's a fair argument. You need to check certain boxes before going to war. Your economy must be robust, your allies must be in agreement, and your enemy should ideally be weakened. How many of these boxes can Iran check? Certainly not economy. Their inflation is nearly 50% and joblessness has reached 10% in Iran. Iran's economy cannot bankroll an all-out war. Secondly, allies. The only options are China and Russia. Beijing is not about to fight a war on the other side of Asia. What about Moscow? They're already stuck in Ukraine. Even after Haniyeh's killing, Putin's message was caution. He said, go after Israel, but limit civilian deaths. That's what he told Iran. Will that Putin ever support an all-out war? Highly unlikely, which brings us to the last condition, the enemy's strength. Israel's military is certainly spread thin at the moment, but Iran won't just be fighting Israel. If a war does break out between Iran and Israel, the West will defend Israel. No two ways about it. The White House says it is preparing for all contingencies.
We're watching this very, very closely to see how Hezbollah and or Iran may react, as well as the militia groups in Iraq and Syria. We have to be prepared for some sort of response. We have to make sure that we are ready, and we are. We believe we have the force capability we need in the region.
We saw that in April too. Iran launched hundreds of drones and missiles at Israel, but the US and the UK shot them down. Frankly, that seems to be Netanyahu's plan. He's basically setting a trap for Iran, luring them into a direct military face-off. Today, Netanyahu needled Iran further. He addressed the Iranian people directly.
Every day, you see a regime that subjugates you make fiery speeches about defending Lebanon, defending Gaza. Yet every day, that regime plunges our region deeper into darkness and deeper into war. Every day, their puppets are eliminated. Ask Mohammed Def. Ask Nasrallah. When Iran is finally free, and that moment will come a lot sooner than people think, everything will be different.
If war breaks out, Netanyahu will have a free hand. He can complete his career-long ambition to dismantle Iran's nuclear facilities, which is why Tehran is watching from the sidelines. But do not mistake them for paper tigers. Iran's army is 3 times bigger than Israel's. They have more soldiers, more ships and more rockets. If they want, they can inflict considerable damage. After all, Israel is a small country. But the current circumstances do not work for Iran. Their economy, their domestic political climate, none of it favors them. So Iran would much rather wait for the tide to turn, to strike when it suits them. Again, just one problem here. It's not a good look in geopolitics. 2 of your top allies have been killed by Israel, Haniyeh and Nasrallah. Another ally, the Houthis, are being bombed. So Iran is failing as a godfather. They're looking unreliable and ineffective. So here's Tehran's dilemma. They cannot allow Israel to dismantle their proxy network. At the same time, they don't want all-out war. It's a very delicate balance for them, one that they've not been able to strike so far. But in the long term, expect changes. This war will force Iran to think hard about their nuclear program. It will reinforce their long-held fears. The Iranian president touched upon this issue, and frankly, he made a good point.
They want us not to have missiles, okay, but Israel also needs to be disarmed. If we don't have missiles, they will bomb us whenever they want, just like in Gaza. And if we object, they will tell us to be quiet.
In Iran's mind, the scores have not been settled. Even if the Gaza war ends, it won't be settled because Israel humiliated Iran and Iran has not responded. Unless they do, the scores will not be equal. It makes the coming months very dangerous for the region. Iran's prestige and pride are at stake. Let's see how much longer they can hold off. The United States is embracing Mohammed Yunus. I mean, quite literally. Let's show you some pictures from last week. Joe Biden met Yunus on the sidelines of the United Nations General Assembly and he gave him a warm hug. This is the same Bangladesh that Biden sanctioned, that he kept out of his democracy summit. So what has changed now? In simple words, the leadership in Dhaka. Washington had a problem with Sheikh Hasina. They accused her of subverting Bangladesh's democracy, of committing human rights violations. But Mohammed Yunus is an old darling. He studied and worked in the United States, even got awards from the US government. The Presidential Medal of Freedom in 2009 and the Congressional Gold Medal in 2010. So it's pretty clear that Washington likes Yunus. Some have even accused the US of orchestrating Hasina's ouster, of installing Yunus as a puppet. We can't be sure of these allegations, but true or not, Yunus did not help his case. He did not just meet Joe Biden, he also met former US President Bill Clinton. Now, Clinton and Yunus have some history. As a governor, Clinton was inspired by Yunus's Grameen Bank. They kept in touch even during his presidency, and that chemistry was on full display.
The whole nation, they mobilized the whole nation together. It's not just the young people. Every single person in Bangladesh support this cause. And I'm very happy that the support in the people of the United States to make that happen. And the sky's the limit. They want to make this Bangladesh called New Bangladesh.
This engagement is quite unusual because the US and Bangladesh have not always hit off. Consider what happened in 1971. Bangladesh was fighting to break away from Pakistan, but Islamabad was America's ally. So what did Washington do? They opposed the liberation war. They tried to stop India from helping Dhaka. In fact, the US did not recognize Bangladesh until 1972, so the relations got off to a bad start and engagements were far and few. Only one US president has ever visited Bangladesh, and that was Bill Clinton in the year 2000. Ironically, Sheikh Hasina was in power back then. That year, she also travelled to Washington. It remains the last bilateral trip from Dhaka to the US. Many leaders have made personal trips since then. They've also attended the UN General Assembly, but even then, meetings were rare. In fact, the last such interaction was in 1990. That's when General Ershad met George H.W. Bush at the United Nations General Assembly. So safe to say, Dhaka was not a priority for the US. Then what has changed now? Well, back then, Washington was focused on beating the Russians. Now they're focused on China. So the Indian Ocean has become prime real estate. Bangladesh has a 580-kilometer coastline. They also have around 150 islands. Washington could use Dhaka to contain China. Is Joe Biden thinking along those lines? Well, Sheikh Hasina says he is. In a leaked speech, she accused Washington of toppling her. She also said that the US wanted to take over a Bangladeshi island, apparently to set up a military base. None of this may ever get proved, but one thing is certainly clear. The United States is thrilled about the churn in Dhaka. Earlier this month, a US delegation traveled to Bangladesh, the first one since Yunus took charge. They promised $200 million in aid. And then came his New York romance. Look at Biden's statement after meeting Yunus. It talks about democracy. It talks about people-to-people ties, and it talks about American support. But guess what it does not talk about? Elections. Yunus is an unelected interim chief, yet Joe Biden did not even prod him to hold elections. Plus, Yunus is cozying up to Washington's old ally, Pakistan. He met Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif in New York. Apparently, Yunus wants a reset with Islamabad. All indications are there. This month, Bangladesh marked the death anniversary of Muhammad Ali Jinnah, the founder of Pakistan. It's the first time Dhaka marked his death anniversary, Jinnah's death anniversary. Same with Islamists. Yunus recently met the leader of a radical group, Mamunul Haq of the Hifazat-e-Islam. It's a group known for making anti-India statements. So New Delhi will be watching all this closely. Mohammad Yunus keeps saying that he wants strong ties with India, but his actions suggest otherwise. He's warming up to Pakistan, he's hosting radical Islamists and ceding strategic space to America. Now let's shift focus to Africa, to the war-torn nation of Sudan, where the ongoing civil war has led to a diplomatic spat between Sudan's army and the United Arab Emirates. The UAE released a statement today. They condemned the Sudanese army. What for? Attacking the residence of the Emirati ambassador, the UAE ambassador, by an airstrike. Now, to clarify, the ambassador was not home, and this was not some assassination attempt. In fact, Sudan had expelled a number of Emirati diplomats months ago. And even before they were expelled, they had shifted base out of the capital Khartoum to the city of Port Sudan. So the ambassador was not hurt in this attack. But Abu Dhabi is still furious. They say Sudan's army conducted a heinous attack. They said it was a violation of international law of the protected status of diplomatic buildings. The UAE has threatened to raise the issue at the League of Arab States, the African Union, and the United Nations. Meanwhile, the Sudanese army has denied responsibility. It gave a sharp rebuttal to the UAE's charges. Let me in fact quote from the part that is after the denial. The one that carries out these heinous and cowardly actions is the terrorist rebel Dalgo militia, supported in committing all this by a country known to the world, and it continues to carry out these acts under the eyes and ears of countries and international organizations. That was a shot at the UAE and their alleged support for one of the sides in the civil war in Sudan. You see, this civil war has been raging for about a year and a half. On one side, you have the Sudanese armed forces, led by Abdel Fattah al-Burhan, the chief of Sudan's military junta and the country's de facto leader. On the other side is a paramilitary group called the Rapid Support Forces, or RSF, led by Mohammed Hamadan Dagalo, better known as Hemeti. That's why the Sudanese army mentioned the rebel Dalgo militia in their statement. They were talking about the RSF. Now, the Sudanese army believes that the RSF, the rebel group, is getting support from the UAE. They've accused Abu Dhabi of funding and arming the paramilitary group. And the UAE has called these allegations baseless and utterly false. But Sudan's army does not believe them. The junta keeps repeating its accusations against the UAE at every international forum, like last week's United Nations General Assembly.
The support from the UAE that you mentioned, we have lots of evidence that proves that there are planes that transport weapons from the UAE to Uganda and then to Chad. This situation was confirmed in the report of the United Nations and was made clear to us through flight tracking. That's why this situation is clear, and everyone knows that is one of the main reasons why the war has continued.
While Burhan was speaking at the UN, his forces launched an assault on Sudan's capital, Khartoum. The RSF has held Khartoum since last year. The group captured it in the early stages of the war, but now the Sudanese army is trying to retake the capital. Major clashes have been taking place over the last 4 days. Both ground assaults and airstrikes are on in various parts of Khartoum. Amid all of this fighting, is it possible that a Sudanese military jet fired a missile elsewhere? The army insists that it did not hit the Emirati ambassador's residence, even though it has both means and motive. We probably won't get a confession out from the junta, and there won't be a proper investigation till the war ends. So both sides will continue to point fingers at each other, and the war in Sudan will drag on. Now let's shift focus to Africa, to the war-torn nation of Sudan, where the ongoing civil war has led to a diplomatic spat between Sudan's army and the United Arab Emirates. The UAE released a statement today. They condemned the Sudanese army. What for? Attacking the residence of the Emirati ambassador, the UAE ambassador, via an airstrike. Now, to clarify, the ambassador was not home, and this was not some assassination attempt. In fact, Sudan had expelled a number of Emirati diplomats months ago. And even before they were expelled, they had shifted base out of the capital, Khartoum, to the city of Port Sudan. So the ambassador was not hurt in this attack. But Abu Dhabi is still furious. They say Sudan's army conducted a heinous attack. They said it was a violation of international law of the protected status of diplomatic buildings. The UAE has threatened to raise the issue at the League of Arab States, the African Union, and the United Nations. Meanwhile, the Sudanese army has denied responsibility. It gave a sharp rebuttal to the UAE's charges. Let me in fact quote from the part that is after the denial. The one that carries out these heinous and cowardly actions is the terrorist rebel Dalgo militia, supported in committing all this by a country known to the world, and it continues to carry out these acts under the eyes and ears of countries and international organizations. That was a shot at the UAE and their alleged support for one of the sides in the civil war in Sudan. You see, this civil war has been raging for about a year and a half. On one side, you have the Sudanese armed forces, led by Abdel Fattah al-Burhan, the chief of Sudan's military junta and the country's de facto leader. On the other side is a paramilitary group called the Rapid Support Forces, or RSF, led by Mohammed Hamadan Dagalo, better known as Hemeti. That's why the Sudanese army mentioned the rebel Dalgo militia in their statement. They were talking about the RSF. Now, the Sudanese army believes that the RSF, the rebel group, is getting support from the UAE. They've accused Abu Dhabi of funding and arming the paramilitary group. And the UAE has called these allegations baseless and utterly false. But Sudan's army does not believe them. The junta keeps repeating its accusations against the UAE at every international forum, like last week's United Nations General Assembly.
The support from the UAE that you mentioned, we have lots of evidence that proves that there are planes that transport weapons from the UAE to Uganda and then to Chad. This situation was confirmed in the report of the United Nations and was made clear to us through flight tracking. That's why this situation is clear, and everyone knows that is one of the main reasons why the war has continued.
While Burhan was speaking at the UN, his forces launched an assault on Sudan's capital, Khartoum. The RSF has held Khartoum since last year. The group captured it in the early stages of the war, but now the Sudanese army is trying to retake the capital. Major clashes have been taking place over the last 4 days. Both ground assaults and airstrikes are on in various parts of Khartoum. Amid all of this fighting, Is it possible that a Sudanese military jet fired a missile elsewhere? The army insists that it did not hit the Emirati ambassador's residence, even though it has both means and motive. We probably won't get a confession out from the junta, and there won't be a proper investigation till the war ends. So both sides will continue to point fingers at each other, and the war in Sudan will drag on. Our next story is from Europe. Austria just held its general election, and for the first time since the Second World War, a far-right party emerged as a winner. Austria's Freedom Party, or the FPO, won the most votes. They did not win an outright majority. They're more than 30 parliamentary seats short of a majority, so there's no guarantee that they will head the next government. But their victory is a sign of the times, the rise of far-right politics all over Europe. Before Austria, there was Germany, with the far right winning a state election there. Before that, there was France and the Netherlands and Italy. All these parties have one major selling point. They all champion anti-immigration policies, and that is what Europe wants right now. Here's our report.
I am rarely at a loss for words. But today I'm finding it a bit difficult. Yes, and for a very, very positive reason. I can't tell you how happy I am about this result. What we have achieved is beyond my wildest dreams. Thank you for that.
That is Herbert Kickl, the man who led Austria's Freedom Party to its best ever result. The Freedom Party, or FPO, has been around since the 1950s. It was first led by Anton Rheintaler, an agricultural minister in Nazi Germany. The FPO was initially a fringe group, but eventually became a part of Austria's governing coalition in the 1980s and early 2000s, and again in 2017. This election is still considered a watershed moment for the party, though, because it has officially become the most popular party in the country. Now, there's no guarantee that they will govern. There are 183 seats in Austria's parliament, the halfway mark is 92. The FPO has just 58 seats, so they will need to form a coalition. And every other party has said that it won't ally with the FPO. At least not under Herbert Kickl. Kickl likes to say that he will be a Volkskanzler. That translates to People's Chancellor. Adolf Hitler used to call himself a Volkskanzler as well. So Kickl has sent alarm bells ringing. After his victory, there were anti-Nazi marches in Austria's capital, Vienna. There were signs telling Nazis to get out of parliament. But despite what the protesters feel, hundreds of thousands voted for Austria's Freedom Party. And people all over Europe have started to favor the so-called far right. We saw this in Germany earlier this month, when the Alternative for Germany party came first in the state of Thuringia, and a close second in neighboring Saxony and Brandenburg. During the European Union elections in June, France saw their far-right party emerge victorious. The National Rally Party won the most seats, prompting French President Emmanuel Macron to call snap elections. Last year, you had the Dutch general election, where the far-right Party for Freedom, led by Geert Wilders, came out on top. Wilders wasn't allowed to become prime minister, but his party is the largest in the current ruling coalition. Then there's Italy, the country that arguably started Europe's turn to the right. In 2022, Italy elected Giorgia Meloni as its prime minister, starting the domino effect that you see. All these far-right parties have one thing in common. They all oppose migration. They loathe illegal immigration, but they aren't fans of the legal kind either. They believe that foreigners are taking away resources, taking away jobs, and changing the fundamental makeup of their nations. This anti-immigrant rhetoric has found a lot of takers in Europe, leading to the far-right surge. Along with the anti-immigration stance, most far-right parties are also Eurosceptics, opposing the European Union's interference in their countries. Barring Italy's Meloni, the others all want to stop supporting Ukraine in its war against Russia. The Europeans are looking inwards. They don't want immigrants. They don't want pan-Europeanism. It's every country for itself. Basically, back to what Europe was before World War II. So, has the EU experiment failed? And is Europe just revealing its true nature? Fractious, self-serving, and xenophobic to the core.
It takes a village to raise a child, we know it already, but Sweden has taken this proverb and turned it into a policy. This Nordic country is home to about 10 million people and some of the world's most progressive childcare policies. In 1974, Sweden introduced paid paternity leave. This is paid time off from work for fathers of newborn children. Back then, this law was a world first. 50 years later, Sweden has made history again, this time by expanding the policy. Now, even grandparents can get paid time off. Here's how. Swedish parents can officially outsource childcare. They can transfer a portion of their parental leave to other caretakers, mostly grandparents, but other relatives and friends as well. And the child care benefits will expand. They'll apply to caretakers who are not part of the child's immediate family. According to research, this will give families more flexibility. It will incentivize support and help parents balance work with raising a child. Now, this is a trailblazing policy. But then again, Swedish parental policies almost always are. Here, parents get 480 days of paid time off, 480 days. They can split the leave amongst themselves. On average, fathers take 30% of the leave, and this is so normalized that it is taboo for Swedish fathers to skip the leave. But while Sweden has aced maternal, paternal, and extended family leave, most of the world is still struggling with the second step, and that is paternity leave. Swedish fathers take the longest paternity leave in Europe. What about other European countries? Iceland offers 180 days of paid paternity leave. Spain offers 112 days. Netherlands, 42 days. But not every European country is this progressive. Look at the UK. It has the worst paternity leave in the continent. Only 2 weeks of leave. This is paid time off, but the pay is fixed, about $246 a week. It's a bad deal for families with a newborn child. So 1 in 3 fathers in the UK take no paternity leave at all. And 1 in 2 families where fathers do take the leave, they struggle financially. So the British are trying to fight this law. Men are campaigning for a longer and better paternity leave, and they have birthed an unusual movement. They're attaching toy babies in slings to statues across the nation. But look outside Europe and the situation gets even worse. Take the US, for instance. It's among a handful of Western countries that does not guarantee paternity leave. What about Asia? Japan and China are the front runners here with 28 and 14 days of paternity leave respectively. Meanwhile, in India, only government employees get paternity leave of 15 days. There is no law for the leave in the private sector. It is left to the discretion of companies. The same applies to Thailand. And in Russia, fathers get only 5 days of unpaid paternity leave. Basically, across the world, the picture looks bleak, and this is not surprising. Child rearing is still seen as a woman's job. So several countries offer generous maternity leave, but paternity leave is not a priority. Bulgaria, for instance, offers 410 days of paid maternity leave. It's the highest in the world. But what about their paternity leave? Just 15 days. Greece offers 301 days of maternity leave, but 18 days to the fathers, 18 days of paternity leave. And this is the norm. But here's the hard truth. Gender equality cannot appear out of thin air. People need incentives to make it happen. So parental leave is important, not only for mothers, but also fathers, because it is good for babies, the family, and the society as a whole. In countries with 6 or more weeks of paternity leave, the gender pay gap reduces by 4%. And the workforce participation gap reduces by 3.7%. Meaning when parents see childcare as an equal responsibility and when the dynamic shifts at home, there is positive change both at home and everywhere else. Our last story tonight comes from Nepal. The Himalayan nation is reeling from deadly floods. Over the weekend, Kathmandu and its surrounding areas received record rainfall. The capital is inundated. More than 200 people are dead. Many more remain missing. Rescue operations are underway and Nepal has a daunting cleanup operation ahead. Now, floods are not new to this country, but what explains this abnormal rainfall, especially at the end of the monsoon? Our next report tells you.
Monsoon floods are a fact of life for Kathmandu's poor. They live by the riverbanks in houses made of flimsy wood and sheet metal. Most of them don't have an option. They come to the city to work. They can't afford any other accommodation. So this is all they have. They are used to rising waters during the monsoon, but this time it swallowed their houses.
We thought the flood would not reach our top floor like several times before. So we were confidently staying on the roof when suddenly the water flowed in. The ground floor was completely flooded and it was rising up to the second floor.
Who even listens to our pain? Even the political leaders do not listen to us. Still, we came to Kathmandu from outside to fulfill our responsibilities.
On Saturday, in just 24 hours, parts of Kathmandu saw about 240 milliliters of rain. It's the most the city has received in 2 decades. The rains continued throughout the weekend. The downpours swelled the Bagmati River and its tributaries, which crisscross the entire city. Floodwaters quickly inundated thousands of homes. 200 people were killed, dozens remain missing, and the search for survivors continues. The rains also triggered landslides. Parts of the highway to the capital remain blocked. Air travel is disrupted. The government has asked people to avoid unnecessary travel. Driving at night is banned in and around Kathmandu. The rains have eased now and locals are returning to their homes to assess the damage.
We can't see right now how much loss has been incurred. But there are at least 400 shops here. The 400 shops have suffered a loss of at least $74,700.
The flood of Bagmati gushed into our school and it's all muddy here. 25 computers in our lab are of no use now because they were waterlogged.
Nepal now faces a daunting cleanup operation. The capital is cut off from the country. Thousands remain displaced. Many of them are stranded on highways. Nepal's army says over 4,000 people had been rescued using helicopters, motorboats and rafts. More rescue operations are underway in the Kathmandu Valley. But what explains this torrential rainfall? Floods and landslides are common across South Asia, especially during the monsoon season. But it's unusual to record so much rain at a time when the monsoon season is ending. All fingers point to climate change. As South Asia becomes hotter, monsoons are becoming stronger and more erratic. The unchecked urban development and illegal construction around the Bagmati River aggravated the situation. The worst may be over for now, but Nepal will be reeling from the impact of this for weeks to come.
What is the biggest challenge to world leaders? Remember, this is our funny segment, so don't think wars or inflation. The answer is supposed to be silly. We say it's a fly. Those tiny, buzzing flying machines. Over the years, flies have irritated even the most seasoned world leaders. So the latest victim stood no chance. That's Donald Trump. A brave fly interrupted his speech on Sunday, so Trump did what any normal politician would do. He swatted it away. I'm kidding, of course. He did a lot more than that. Donald Trump claimed that flies had somehow changed in the last 2 years, that when he was president, this wouldn't have happened. Trump is not the first leader to be terrorized by flies, nor will he be the last.
Oh, there's a fly. Oh, I wonder where the fly came from. See, 2 years ago, I wouldn't have had a fly up here. You're changing rapidly, but we can't take it any longer.
Sorry, I'm going to start over. Hey, get out of here.
That's the most persistent fly I've ever seen. Nice.
And women who serve in law enforcement, and I want everyone to know who puts on the uniform.
That's a nasty fly.
And now it's time for Vantage Shots, images that tell the story. New Zealand breaks the Guinness World Record for the most people performing a haka, which is a Maori ceremonial war dance. SpaceX capsule docks at the International Space Station to bring back stranded astronauts. And climate activists throw soup at 2 of Vincent van Gogh's Sunflowers paintings in London. Finally, we're taking you back in history. On this day in 1938, British and French Prime Ministers signed the Munich Pact with Germany's Adolf Hitler. It allowed Nazi Germany to take control of parts of Czechoslovakia. British Prime Minister Neville Chamberlain believed that this would prevent another war. However, it only encouraged Hitler, triggering World War II. We're leaving you on that note. Thank you for watching. We will see you tomorrow.
And the manner of taking over and the new frontiers on the map of Europe. And we give you history in the making, the actual signing of the agreement which meant peace for Europe. Coordinate their own interests to those of the peace of the world.
In an orbital night
of an umbilical from the Dragon to
Freedom arriving.
Welcome to the International Space Station, and Nick, welcome back home.
Expedition 72.
From impeachments to inaugurations, if it's a political story, we are on the scene. The race for the White House is heating up.
Kamala, you're fired!
I say, bring it on.
If it's breaking news, we're live with the latest coverage. From the White House, the State Department, and Capitol Hill. We know the issues, but above all, we know the players to bring you the latest in-depth analysis on all the key stories that we're covering. I'm Eric Ham. Join me from Washington here on First Post America. We begin in the Middle East. Hezbollah chief Syed Hassan Nasrallah was killed by an Israeli airstrike in Lebanon's capital, Beirut, on Friday. The attack was carried out when Nasrallah and several other Hezbollah leaders had gathered in a bunker located more than 60 feet underground.
To the holiest and most precious thing in our march that is full of sacrifices and martyrdom, we want you to continue jihad in the face of the enemy and in support of Gaza and Palestine, and in defense of Lebanon and its steadfast and honorable people. And to the honorable Mujahideen and the forgiven and victorious heroes of the Islamic resistance, you are trusted by the martyred Syed Hassan Nasrallah, and you and your brothers were his impregnable shield and the jewel in the crown of heroism and sacrifice.
Now, according to reports, the strikes involved several intelligence agencies and meticulous planning by the Israeli military. Israel had real-time intelligence that the Hezbollah chief was actually gathering with his associates to discuss retaliation against Israel and express frustration for Iran's silence. Nasrallah convened the meeting to address the two serial device blasts that hit Hezbollah 2 weeks ago, killing dozens and injuring thousands. The Iran-backed group blamed Israel for the attack. However, Tehran implored restraint from responding with immediate actions. During the airstrikes on the Hezbollah chief, the Israeli Air Force used almost 80 tons of munition that included special bombs designed to penetrate deep into hardened structures. The attack consisted of a series of timed and chain explosions to kill the Hezbollah chief, whose death also prompted Iran's supreme leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei to shift to a more secure location. The final nod for the airstrikes was given by the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, who was in New York to attend the UN General Assembly.
Yesterday, the State of Israel eliminated the arch-murderer Hassan Nasrallah. We have settled accounts with someone who was responsible for the murders of countless Israelis and many nationals of other countries, including hundreds of Americans and dozens of French. Nasrallah was not just another terrorist, he was the terrorist. He was the axis of the axis, the main engine of Iran's axis of evil. He and his people were the architects of the plan to destroy Israel. He was not only operated by Iran, he also frequently operated Iran. Therefore, at the beginning of the week, I came to the conclusion that the powerful blows that the IDF has been landing on Hezbollah in recent days were not enough.
However, Netanyahu's move was met with frustration in Washington, as the Biden administration had been trying to restart ceasefire negotiations between Israel and Hezbollah. In fact, White House officials said they were not informed about the strike beforehand, and Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin even expressed this concern with his Israeli counterpart Yoav Gallant. President Joe Biden will now be talking to Netanyahu to avoid an all-out war in the Middle East.
Are you going to talk to Prime Minister Netanyahu? You have anything to say to him?
Yes, I will be talking to him, and I'll tell you what I say to him when I talk to him.
All-out war in the Middle East be avoided?
It has to be. We really have to avoid it. We've already taken precautions relative to our embassies and personnel who want to leave.
As Israeli airstrikes continue, Lebanon's prime minister says that as many as 1 million people have been displaced across the country. What happens next remains uncertain for the international community as civilians continue to suffer amid heightened tensions in the region. And here in the United States, the race for the White House marches on as former President Donald Trump once again launched personal attacks on Vice President Kamala Harris that have now sparked controversy. Speaking at a rally in the crucial swing state of Pennsylvania, Donald Trump said that Kamala Harris was born mentally impaired and compared her actions to mentally disabled people.
Crooked Joe Biden became mentally impaired, sad. But Lion Kamala Harris, honestly, I believe she was born that way. There's something wrong with Kamala. And I just don't know what it is, but there is definitely something missing. And you know what? Everybody knows it.
And now the Republican presidential nominee repeated the same insult at a campaign rally in Wisconsin as well. During the event, he also continued his anti-immigration rhetoric and said Kamala Harris should be impeached and prosecuted for felonies and misdemeanors.
She should be impeached and prosecuted for her actions. On day one of my new administration, the invasion ends and the deportations begin. We get them out.
Trump also referred to Harris as stupid, weak, and lazy, and falsely claimed that she had turned black. However, many Republicans, including Senator Lindsey Graham, distanced themselves from the remarks, saying Donald Trump should stick to electoral issues like the economy and immigration. Republican and former Maryland Governor Larry Hogan, who's also in a heated battle for the Senate in Maryland, even said that Donald Trump's comments were not just insulting to Kamala Harris, but also to people with mental disabilities. Meanwhile, during a rally in Las Vegas, the vice president mocked Donald Trump's refusal to participate in a second presidential debate, along with the decreasing crowd sizes at his rallies.
I'm trying to debate Donald Trump again, and I think he should debate again. The American people have a right to hear us discuss the issues. And as you say here in Las Vegas, I'm all in. I'm all in. Even if my opponent is ready to fold. So there you go.
Now, according to the latest New York Times Siena College poll, Kamala Harris is slightly ahead of Donald Trump in the battleground states of Wisconsin and Michigan. And as the race closes in on its climactic finale, polls continue to show an unclear picture of where the election actually stands. However, what remains certain is that Harris and Trump's back and forth will go down to the wire in just over 5 weeks. And staying in the United States, Hurricane Helene has wreaked havoc in the South, leaving at least 95 people dead, with more fatalities expected as recovery efforts continue. North and South Carolina remain the hardest hit, and nearly 2.2 million homes have lost power. Damage estimates range from $95 billion to $110 billion. A federal emergency is still in effect for Tennessee, Florida, Georgia, Alabama, and the Carolinas. Here's more on the storm's damaging aftermath.
The devastating wrath of Storm Helene has carved a path of destruction through at least 6 major states in the US, claiming the lives of at least 95 people, a number that is expected to rise in the coming days. Authorities report that the majority of the fatalities occurred in North and South Carolina, where Helene made a landfall as a tropical storm. North Carolina alone lost 37 people, with South Carolina following at 25, Georgia 17, Florida 11, Tennessee 2, and Virginia 1. US President Joe Biden has called the situation tragic.
Yes, it's tragic. Matter of fact, we're trying to get the exact number. My FEMA advisor is on the ground in Florida right now.
According to the tracker Power Outage US, as of Sunday, nearly 2.2 million households were left in the dark. While crews from the US Department of Energy are working tirelessly to restore power, officials warn the recovery will be complex and a multi-day process. North Carolina has suffered the brunt of Helene's fury. Hundreds of roads remain closed, with several bridges washed away by floodwaters. 4 major interstate highways have been shut down across the state, with several more closures reported in Georgia and South Carolina. Despite the deployment of emergency personnel to assist stranded residents, providing basic supplies like drinking water remains a challenge. In many areas, rescuers have been forced to airlift essentials due to impassable or flooded roads. Over 50 search teams have been dispatched in North Carolina alone, scouring the state for stranded residents. Hurricane Helene rode ashore late Thursday last week in Florida's Big Bend region as a Category 4 storm with winds topping 140 miles per hour or 225 kilometers per hour. Though it weakened as it moved inland, Helene still packed a punch, devastating Georgia, the Carolinas and Tennessee, with torrential rains that flooded rivers and strained dams and triggered widespread flooding.
It's five generations lived in this house, from my grandmother, my father, myself, my daughter, son, and my granddaughter. We was raised in this house. So there's a lot of memories here. It breaks your heart. It just devastates you.
Experts estimate that the damage from Helene could range between $95 billion and $110 billion, but a clearer picture will emerge once recovery efforts are complete. A federal emergency has already been declared in the affected states.
I want to remind all North Carolinians that conditions on the ground remain extremely dangerous, even as flooding has continued, and it will continue to recede. We ask people not to venture into storm-affected areas, whether to check on property, loved ones, or just to sightsee. Besides endangering yourself, you could also be interfering with emergency responders or repair crews.
Climate change has worsened conditions that fuel these storms, with warming waters allowing hurricanes to rapidly intensify into powerful cyclones. Officials warn that more storms may be on the horizon as hurricane season doesn't officially end until November 30th.
And Russia is tightening its grip on personal freedoms once again. And this time the target is those who choose not to have children. A new bill proposes harsh penalties on what Vladimir Putin's government calls child-free propaganda. Individuals who promote or defend the decision not to have children could face fines of over $4,000. For government officials, that number jumps to nearly $9,000, and for companies, the punishment can soar to more than $50,000. However, only those with religious, health, or traumatic exemptions like rape survivors can opt out of having children. The Kremlin is pushing this legislation as part of a wider plan to reverse Russia's shrinking population. And with the births at their lowest since the collapse of the Soviet Union, Putin is urging his government to make large families fashionable once again. Recently, Putin advocated families to have at least 7 to 10 children, and officials rolled out new policies to help meet that goal. One such policy is to encourage working women to start new families by partaking in conjugal breaks during office hours. The latest bill also seeks to limit birth control. Now abortions would only be allowed in state-run clinics. However, at least 10 states have already banned abortion. The bill would even restrict access to cases involving severe health risk, incest, or rape, with the cutoff for abortion being reduced to 9 weeks instead of the current 12. So as Russia goes all out to reverse its dwindling population, the Kremlin has issued a clear message: procreate or pay up. And finally, NASA astronauts Sunita Williams and Butch Wilmore are set to return to Earth as SpaceX's Dragon capsule successfully docked at the International Space Station. The Falcon 9 rocket lifted off from Florida and is tasked with bringing the stranded astronauts back home in February. This will mark another milestone for SpaceX's ongoing partnership with NASA. Here's our final report on more.
It was a mission that was supposed to be routine. Just 8 days in space aboard Boeing's new Starliner capsule. But for NASA astronauts Sunita Williams and Butch Wilmore, that mission turned into an unexpected and extended stay. Shortly after Williams and Wilmore arrived at the ISS, problems started to emerge. The Starliner began to show signs of trouble, including helium leaks and malfunctioning thrusters. After weeks of testing and assessing the capsule's condition, NASA made a difficult decision. It wasn't safe to bring Williams and Wilmore back to Earth in the Starliner.
Failure is not an option. That's why we are staying here now. forward heat shield and drogues out.
The capsule would return empty, leaving the two astronauts stranded in orbit.
Touchdown. Starliner is back on Earth.
While NASA engineers worked to troubleshoot the Starliner, the two astronauts made the most of their time aboard the ISS, contributing to ongoing experiments and helping with daily operations. But as the months passed, it became clear that their homecoming would require a different plan. Enter SpaceX. With their reliable Dragon capsule, already a proven method of shuttling astronauts to and from the space station, the company was called upon to assist. And after several months of preparation, the Dragon was ready. The launch of SpaceX's Crew 9 mission finally took place on a Saturday afternoon from Cape Canaveral, Florida. Lifting off aboard the Falcon 9 rocket. Aboard the Dragon were NASA astronaut Nick Hague and Russian cosmonaut Alexander Gorbunov. They were tasked with a two-part mission: join the ISS crew and, most importantly, bring Williams and Wilmore back home. Then, after a smooth journey, the Dragon capsule docked with the ISS at precisely 17:30 Eastern Time on Sunday, 265 miles above Botswana in southern Africa. Inside the space station, there were smiles all around, as Hague and Gorbunov were greeted by their fellow astronauts, and the relief palpable after months of uncertainty.
Welcome to the International Space Station. And Nick, welcome back home to the International Space Station. It's great to be here with bringing the 72 back up to 11.
So first off, I just want to say thank you to the teams that got us ready to fly Freedom to the station, and it was a awesome ride. And coming through the hatch and seeing all the smiles, and as much as I've laughed and cried in the last 10 minutes, I know it's going to be an amazing expedition, so I'm really looking forward to getting to work up here.
NASA has already confirmed that Williams and Wilmore will be returning home in February,
next February,
ending their unexpected 8-month stay in space. In the meantime, Hague and Gorbunov would spend 5 months on the ISS, diving into scientific research with around 200 experiments planned for their mission.
So I'm very happy to be here in this huge, amazing laboratory, International Space Station. And I'm looking forward to working with this crew, Expedition 72, and with people who are supporting us on the ground, MCC Houston, MCC Moscow.
While it was a moment of triumph for SpaceX, it's also a stark reminder of the unpredictable nature of space travel. Boeing's Starliner has faced setbacks, but the stranded astronauts are finally on track to return home, where Boeing failed, but SpaceX delivered.
Touchdown. Starliner is back on Earth.
That's our show for today. We certainly thank you so much for tuning in, and we look forward to seeing you right back here again tomorrow. Thanks again for watching. From impeachments to inaugurations, if it's a political story, we are on the scene. The race for the White House is heating up.
Kamala, you're fired!
I say, bring it on.
If it's breaking news, we're live with the latest coverage. From the White House, the State Department, and Capitol Hill. We know the issues, but above all, we know the players to bring you the latest in-depth analysis on all the key stories that we're covering. I'm Eric Ham. Join me from Washington here on Firstpost America.
Firstpost reports from the world's second largest continent. Hello, I'm Alison LaGrange. A very warm welcome from Durban, South Africa. We get you the news and the newsmakers from Africa. From elections, to climate change, to innovations and opportunities. As the world's attention shifts, we report from Africa, the heart of the global south. Join me every weekday live on First Post. Hello and welcome to First Post Africa, where we get you the top stories from the continent and from across the world. I'm Alison LaGrange, coming to you live from Durban, South Africa. Hello and welcome. We start with Sudan. The United Arab Emirates has accused the Sudanese army of carrying out a targeted attack on its ambassador's residence in the capital Khartoum. The UAE's foreign ministry said the residence of its envoy was attacked by a Sudanese military aircraft on Monday. The ambassador was not present in the residence. He left Sudan after the war erupted last year. The UAE embassy has been relocated and is operating out of the Port Sudan. But the foreign ministry said the attack caused extensive damage to the building. The Gulf nation has strongly reacted by calling it a heinous attack. It has called on the army to take the full responsibility for the incident. UAE's foreign ministry also affirmed that it will lodge a complaint to the League of Arab States, the African Union and the United Nations. The Sudanese army, meanwhile, has rejected the accusation and has instead blamed the RSF for the attack. The attack on the UAE ambassador's residence comes as the Sudanese army launched its biggest offensive in months to retake the areas of Khartoum lost to the paramilitary Rapid Support Forces, or the RSF. War between the army and the RSF erupted in April last year over a transition to free elections. The army has repeatedly accused the UAE of providing weapons and support to the RSF in the 17-month-old war. However, the Gulf state denies the allegations.
We have lots of evidence that proves that there are planes that transport weapons from the UAE to Uganda and then to Chad. This situation was confirmed in the report of the United Nations and was made clear to us through flight tracking. That's why this situation is clear, and everyone knows that is one of the main reasons why the war has continued.
A UN document that was leaked in January described the accusation against the UAE as credible. It found evidence that suggested that the UAE had sent weapons to the RSF several times. As per the document, Emirati passports were allegedly found in Sudan, which were linked to soldiers of the RSF. Analysts say the UAE has a vested interest in Sudan. It views the resource-rich, strategically located Sudan as an opportunity to expand its influence and control in Africa. It is considering the partnership with the RSF as a gateway to gain access to Sudanese land, seaports and minerals, as well as agricultural resources. Since 2018, the UAE has reportedly invested over $6 billion in the African country. The UAE is also involved in the US-led efforts to end the war in Sudan. Last month, the UAE joined a slew of other nations to participate in peace talks in Geneva. However, the Sudanese army rejected the talks due to the UAE's presence. As per reports, American officials have told the Sudanese president and army chief, General Abdel Fattah al-Burhan, that they will pressure the United Arab Emirates to stop providing weapons to the RSF. But how will the latest escalation complicate the situation between the UAE and Sudan? Now, for more on this, we have with us Professor William Gumede, founder of Democracy Works Foundation, who is joining us live from Johannesburg, South Africa. Thank you for being with us.
Well, good afternoon. I'm very happy to speak to you.
Now, Professor, what are the potential motivations behind the Sudanese army's attack on the UAE ambassador's residence in Khartoum?
I mean, you know, the Sudanese conflict is one of the most tragic conflicts in Africa today. I mean, we talk about the Russia-Ukraine war constantly, but I mean, this is certainly Africa's biggest conflict. We're talking about, 25 million people, half of the country needs support, and 8 million people have fled the country. Now, one of the reasons for this, the conflict continuing has been that there's so many foreign players, foreign countries with vested interests in Sudan that are there. And I know, I mean, the context of what's happening right now, I mean, the Sudanese armed forces has the last couple of weeks launched an offensive to try to take over Khartoum. And that's the context at the moment. And, the UAE has been accused of supporting the rapid support forces, and obviously they've denied and so on. And I think in the Sudanese armed forces, in their offensive now to try to take over Khartoum, I'm not surprised at the accusations that they may have attacked the UAE residents, because the UAE is a very key supporter of the rapid support forces.
Yeah. Right. And Professor, how might this incident impact the diplomatic relations between Sudan and the United Arab Emirates, as well as Sudan's relations with other Gulf countries?
I mean, the first thing is the UAE is very invested in Sudan. I mean, we're talking here about, since 2018, $6 billion US of investment. They've announced investment of the port, potential investments of the ports, and so on. And also, they've identified Sudan as a country that they can export agriculture from. So, this is a very, this conflict right now between the Sudanese armed forces, the Sudanese government, and the UAE has massive implications, not only for the relationship between Sudan and the UAE, but also for the region. I mean, if you think about, the Sudanese, Sudan is surrounded by countries in conflict, also Libya, Central African Republic, and so on. So we may see even the spread of the conflict even further, and this conflict, unless it's dealt with, this disagreement may actually lead to the prolongation of this whole conflict.
And what measures can international bodies like the United Nations and the African Union take to address and prevent such attacks on diplomatic missions?
I mean, the first thing, so the UN should, we need much more strong involvement in the UN. I know, at the beginning of the year, the UN had a report that stated that UAE is potentially conflicted here in the country. The second thing, in terms of there's an embargo, UN embargo, but that's certainly not enough. The UN should really isolate foreign players in the conflict, because the involvement of foreign players has actually been one of the reasons why the conflict has been going on for such a long time. For example, it's not only the UAE, it's also Russia is also involved, Iran is involved, Egypt is involved, Saudi Arabia is involved in this conflict. I mean, it's almost a battle of foreign players to try to take control of Sudan via this civil war. But I think we haven't seen the African Union. So foreign players have, even in a peacemaking process, it's been foreign players, but it's not the African Union. So the African Union really has to come to the party and intervene much more actively.
Yes. And Professor, in what ways could this attack influence the ongoing conflict between the Sudanese military and the RSF? And what are the broader implications for regional stability?
I mean, clearly it seems that the Sudanese armed forces, what they want to try to do, they're trying to isolate the UAE, and they're trying to prevent any weapons or any aid from the UAE to the rapid support forces. Obviously, the UAE has denied that they're providing any support to the rapid support forces, because I mean the key reason. If the allegations are true that the UAE supports the rapid support forces, it is one of the reasons then for the conflict to continuing. And what would it mean for a broader region? It will destabilize the broader region, but not only outside Sudan, but also within the country. If you think about it, I mean, this is Africa's biggest, right now, the biggest humanitarian crisis. It will just prolong the crisis and make it worse, but it will also destabilize the countries around Sudan.
Yes. Professor, thank you very much for being with us on the show. Very much appreciated.
Thank you.
Moving on to South Africa, where in a rural town of the country's southeast, 18 people, including 15 women, were killed in 2 mass shootings. The shooting took place on the night of the 27th of September in the town of Lusikisiki in the Eastern Cape province. Now, footage released by police showed that the shootings occurred at 2 houses in the same neighborhood on the outskirts of Lusikisiki town. According to police, 12 women and a man were killed in one house, while 3 women and 1 man were killed in another house. The 18th victim died in hospital later, whose identity is yet to be confirmed. Reports said that victims had gathered at the houses to attend a traditional mourning ceremony just when the shooting occurred. All victims are reported to be each other's neighbors or relatives. The police said that they have mobilized maximum resources to ensure the killers are found, but so far no suspect has been arrested. In a statement, the South African police minister said that either the suspects must hand themselves over to the police or the police will fetch them. The authorities assured the citizens in the Eastern Cape province and the rest of the country that they will leave no stone unturned in hunting down the perpetrators of the mass shooting. The mass shooting in the Eastern Cape province comes amid Operation Shanele, now a high-intensity policing strategy to crack down on violent crime across South Africa. Now, according to South African police, just in the last 4 weeks, Operation Shanele has led to the arrest of over 53,000 suspects, including 10,844 wanted criminals in crimes such as murder, rape, kidnapping and extortion. Authorities said that they have also seized hundreds of illegal firearms, including handguns and rifles. A significant portion of these illegal firearms were recovered in the Eastern Cape province. South Africa has one of the highest murder rates in the world. More than 27,000 murders were reported in South Africa in 2022 alone, which amounts to 45 murders per 100,000 people, against a global average of 5.61. As authorities respond to the continued onslaught of violent crime in South Africa with Operation Shanele, the question remains, how long will it take for South Africa to decisively defeat the scourge of mass shootings? Shifting focus now, after Mpox, another health scare is emerging in Africa. At least 6 people have died in Rwanda in a fresh outbreak of the Marburg virus. It is a highly infectious disease that leads to severe illness. At least 26 cases have been confirmed since Friday in Rwanda. Authorities say the majority of the victims are health workers in the intensive care unit, and they are tracking around 300 more people who may have been exposed to the virus, mostly in the capital city of Kigali. Rwandan government is implementing measures such as contact tracing, quarantining affected individuals, and launching public health awareness campaigns to curb the virus.
In the other outbreaks, this type of disease most of the time, if not all the time, they start from hospitals. Because if you are sick, you go to a hospital anyway. And that explains why healthcare providers are the most at risk. And so far, more than 8% of the patients we have are actually healthcare workers or staff within those departments taking care of very sick patients.
So, what is the Marburg virus? It is a highly infectious disease similar to Ebola. The virus was first identified in 1967 in the German city of Marburg, hence the name. Now, the suspected natural source of the Marburg virus is the African fruit bat, which carries the pathogen but does not fall sick from it. African green monkeys and pigs can also carry the virus. As per the WHO, the disease has a high fatality rate ranging from 24 to 88%. In humans, the virus can spread through bodily fluids such as blood, saliva, vomit, and objects contaminated with fluids like clothing, bedding, and needles, etc. Infected semen, which can remain infectious months after recovery. Now, its symptoms include high fever, severe headaches, muscle pains, watery diarrhea, stomach pain, vomiting, and bleeding from various parts of the body. So what are the possible treatments? Well, currently, there are no vaccines or antiviral treatments available for the virus. But potential treatments like blood products, immune and drug therapies, as well as early candidate vaccines are being evaluated. But there are ways that people can prevent the virus from spreading, and these include avoiding physical contact with infected people, washing hands regularly, avoiding consumption of bushmeat or contact with pigs in outbreak areas, and also strict containment measures. This is Rwanda's first Marburg outbreak. Neighboring Tanzania reported cases of the disease in 2023, while Uganda experienced its last outbreak in 2017. The three countries share porous borders. The disease in Rwanda is also spreading as Africa is already reeling from an Mpox outbreak, which prompted the WHO to declare a global health emergency. The epicenter of the current Mpox outbreak is Rwanda's neighbor DRC, which has reported more than 25,000 suspected cases and 800 deaths this year. The WHO says it is providing support to Rwanda in managing the Marburg outbreak. Now, will the country be able to contain the deadly disease, or will the world see another deadly outbreak causing a global health emergency? And finally, to our special segment, Resurgent Africa. Amid the coups and the crises, there are many positive stories from Africa that often get overlooked, but not on this show. Our story today is from Kenya's Mombasa City. A dedicated group of volunteers is stepping in to help baby sea turtles survive their perilous journey from their nests to the ocean. As threats like habitat loss, pollution and climate change prevent many from reaching the sea, our last report gets you all the details on how these conservationists are guiding the hatchlings to the water.
The internet is a treasure trove of heartwarming animal videos. From a dog enjoying a splash-filled day to a cat serving as a guiding companion for its blind female friend, the range of touching moments is endless. But nestled among these feel-good snippets are awe-inspiring videos of tiny sea turtles emerging from their delicate eggs and embarking on a dangerous journey toward the unknown depths of the sea. However, due to the relentless loss of nesting beaches, blinding light pollution and climate change, many of these baby turtles never make it to the sea.
These turtles are endangered species, and turtles have been in the world for over 1,400 years, just like when the dinosaurs were here.
Their journey, which should be one of nature's miracles, is cut short before it even begins.
All these beaches here are places where turtles come to lay their eggs, and it should be natural for the eggs to come out on the right days. But due to the challenges that exist, such as the increase in activities in the sea, human activities, people building beyond the borders near the beaches of the sea, and poachers, all have a negative effect on the turtles.
But amid the growing threats, a group of Kenyan volunteers has taken it upon themselves to become the guardians of hope for these small, determined flippers. Their mission? To guide the turtles from the moment they break free of their shells to the very moment they slip into the uncertain waters. With tender hands, these volunteers help the hatchlings navigate their brief yet perilous path across the sand, all the while battling the elements and the ever-present danger of predators. As the turtles inch closer to the ocean, the waves, nature's own arms, take over, carrying them into the vast, mysterious blue, where they'll attempt to survive and grow into the majestic, ancient beings that have roamed Earth's oceans for over 100 million years. Yet, the harsh truth remains. Only a small fraction of these vulnerable newborns make it past their first days in the water. But these conservationists aren't just the guiding stars for baby turtles, they are warriors for the environment. In addition to aiding the hatchlings, they tirelessly clean the beaches, removing deadly plastics that can easily be mistaken by the turtles as food. For many, ingesting these toxic materials is a death sentence before their lives have even begun. It's a heartbreaking reminder of the damage we inflict on ecosystems that are struggling to survive. Sea turtles are not just creatures of the deep, they are vital players in the health of marine ecosystems. They ensure the survival of seagrass beds and coral reefs, which in turn sustain a myriad of ocean life. Their potential extinction would trigger a chain reaction that could irreparably damage not only the ocean's biodiversity, but also human life. Everything is interconnected, and losing these turtles could unravel the very fabric of our world's ecological balance.
We need to create awareness, or to make people understand, to educate people about the importance of this sea of ours, because it greatly affects the ecosystem. And also, if we do not take care of our environment, the environment will come to beat us in a worse situation.
The volunteers labor tirelessly, driven by one unshakable hope, that their efforts will awaken something in the hearts of others. They dream of a future where the weight of responsibility for our planet is shared by everyone, where people are moved to take action not just for the turtles, but for the oceans, the earth, and ultimately for ourselves.
And that's it on the show for today. We will see you again tomorrow at the same time. Thank you for watching, and goodbye.
Ba. Ba. Yes. What? Yes. Yes.
Ba.
Yes, yes.
Ba.